Hello and welcome to my Hardspace Shipbreaker guide, in which I will show you how you can use the entirety of the Mackarel in a single shift. So let's skip the intro and get right into it. And here we go to work by profit and record time. We start out by turning on our lights because safety is #1 priority. Next, the antennas have to go, and then the maneuvering thrusters. And yes, those are maneuvering thrusters. You can tell by the fact that their thrusters go both forwards and backwards, so they are for braking and maneuvering. The more you know.
Your blood pressure levels dropping. Salvage deposit accepted. Credits transferred.
Right, with those taken care of, time to head inside. Once inside, there are two things we want to look out for, namely oxygen tanks and repair kits. Because we always want repair kits and we always want oxygen. Fuel and health packs don't matter. Then we take out the air. Once the air is out, we depressurize the airlock. And at this point it's time to start actually cutting the ship into pieces. Personally, I like to mainly use the spot welder for this, not the cutter, because the cutter becomes more and more powerful as the game goes on and develops a nasty habit of cutting giant holes into your ship where you don't want them. And from here we then want to cut loose the bridge and then cut out the floor. Of course, if you want, you can also go for MLG programmer moves, but nobody likes show-offs. Especially when they show off very, very badly. And once the entire floor is cut out, the next part is the rear of the ship. We don't want to cut it out entirely yet. I will explain why in a short moment. And there's also some part of the ceilings we can take out. But again, you don't want to take the entire reactor ceiling out. And then it's time to get rid of the floor. Now you can use either tethers for it or do it manually, but at this point it's just much faster to do it with tethers. The only little trick that I have is that you pull out the parts that are still stuck in the floor a tiny bit, so you can attach the tethers more easily and they don't get stuck in the ship itself. After that, next up is the generator. Now you could just tether it to the barge, but come on, if you get the chance to slingshot a nuke through space, why wouldn't you? Then we have the main engine, which is very straightforward, except for the weight. It has a lot of inertia, a lot of momentum. So when you place it in the barge, make sure there's nothing under it, because it will crush it. Once the main engine is safely stowed away, we take out the ceiling, which is pretty much the same thing as the floor again, very straightforward. Only thing of note here is the cargo hatch, which goes into the barge, not the recycling bin, so keep that in mind. Also, here as you can see, you can do it pretty much fine without tethers. I just prefer to use tethers. Then it's time for us to clear out the cargo and the cockpit. The order in which you do it is pretty irrelevant, just stay clear of the junction box for now. Sometimes there's 3 computers in the cockpit, sometimes 4, sometimes just 2, doesn't matter. Personally, I don't bother with the storage bins in the cockpit. You can if you want to. After the interior, our next stop is the fuel and then the side of the ship. Now if you target the fuel cells themselves, the fuel pipes will detach automatically and then you can put them into salvage separately, but you don't have to. With the fuel gone, we can now look for the energy cell, which in this case of course is on the other side of the airlock. So we go to the side that doesn't have the airlock and cut off the side panels. Here you can use the cutter, Matter of fact, you should use the cutter, it's just so much faster. Then you start salvaging the side panels of the ship. Just make sure you have one tether left to attach to the cockpit and pull the cockpit a bit towards the salvage side. The one tether won't be enough to get in there, but that's fine. We just want the cockpit away from the rest of the ship so we can get at the stuff behind it. After that you probably need to buy new tethers, so buy new tethers. Once back at the ship, it's time to take care of the energy cell and the coolant tanks. Now the trick with the coolant tanks is to loosen them first, but then let go of them so they turn, and then grab them again so you can pull them out. And once you've taken care of the coolant tanks, you use 3 tethers to pull the rest of the cockpit into the salvage area. And at this point we are on the home stretch! Now all we have to do is do the same for the walls on the right side. There is the problem of the airlock, and I just ignore the airlock for this part. So pull off the side walls. If you want, you can do it like me and forget one of them, but you don't have to. And then you attach some tethers to the rest of the ship and pull into the forge. Now, as we can clearly see, I placed these tethers perfectly, and so the rest of the ship is going to disappear inside the forge, and that is going to be it. Which means the only thing left to do for us at this point is to rip out the junction box. Now the tricky part here is that it's usually still full of fuel cells and oxygen cells, so you want to take those out before the sparks ignite them and blow up the rest of the ship. Then you can step back and watch your ship disappear in the forge. And now you did a great job! Congratulations! Alright, and that's a wrap. I hope my guide was able to help you out. If it was, leave a comment. If it didn't, be gentle, this is my first time. Thank you for watching, I guess.